Hello and welcome to episode 237 of Sutton Impact Style. And I think we're coming off what is going to be a regular situation for us Steeler fans. It's another loss.
Yes, and it was probably loss number 3 out of probably what's going to be 10 or 11 losses.
I think so.
Yeah.
But depressingly, as bad as they are right now, I saw in Bleacher Report they had if the draft was today, they would have, with one win, they only have the 12th pick in the draft right now, which is a real bummer.
Yeah, I need them to pick somewhere between 1 and 6, I think.
I think so.
They have some hope.
Although I do get nervous because, like I said, I love the Willis kid out of Liberty. But the more I've heard about Spencer, I mean, I watched Spencer Rattler, but I heard some stuff about him recently. And you know who he sounds like? He sounds personality-wise like he's somewhere between Jeff Cutler and Jeff George, or Jay Cutler and Jeff George, which, not what you want in your quarterback.
No.
No matter how physically
But
talented.
it'd be hard to pick a worse pairing than those two.
And that was from people that knew him from the Dilfer, quarterback camps. They were like, he's a hard guy to like. It's like, oh, well, that's another quarterback off the board that nobody's going to want. Or I certainly don't want in Pittsburgh.
Well, we'll see what happens against Texas this week. They play Texas.
Yeah. But
and
I guess
they have not looked good. I mean, they're usually good for a 30 to 40 point win. They haven't had it yet.
No. But I guess since we're in the NCAA, you want to start college football?
Yeah. I mean, it looks like Alabama, Georgia, and whoever else you want to throw in the mix. But those two look
dominant.
Cincinnati played Notre Dame pretty well. It's going to be hard to assess Cincinnati because they really don't play anybody else.
No.
But you would assume right now that Cincinnati's got a great chance of being in the conversation for the playoff.
Well,
that's a big win, and they should go undefeated.
I mean, Oregon took their loss, and now the Pac-12 is somewhat of a mess.
Yeah.
Florida has 2 losses
UCLA
now.
UCLA lost again, so they're totally, the Pac-12 is not in the conversation.
No.
And if Texas beats Oklahoma, that'll end that conversation.
Yeah, real quick. Just like that.
Got to be the end of that because it wouldn't be foreseeable that any of those teams would come out of the Big 12 undefeated.
No. And the Big 10 I still think is a little, I mean, Michigan is now a top 10 team, right? I believe.
Michigan's top 10, and they'll play Ohio State, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But
there's probably not enough strength of schedule now, and Penn State will be on. Penn State is in that mix, so they'll have a team for sure in the playoff.
Yes. And the ACC is.
And doesn't look like the ACC will.
No. I mean, if we just preseason, you just assume Clemson is one of the 4 teams, and they're clearly not.
They're clearly not, and there's nobody else there. I mean, the other preseason top team was Miami, and they've got 2 losses. They're not going to be anywhere. Pitt lost to Northern Michigan or Western Michigan or somebody, and even if they run the table, that'll be a bad enough loss that you could take them seriously.
No. Yeah, at this point, I mean, we're going to get into a little bit of a conversation about the rankings in a second, the preseason rankings, but right now, I can't wait to watch Georgia, Alabama, because both those teams just look so dominant. Like whether you do the eye test, analytics, those 2 teams look head and shoulders above everybody else in college football. And
yeah,
Georgia's
I like Georgia's defense a lot. I like Georgia's defense better than Alabama's defense.
Oh yeah, and Georgia's got
you got the Saban factor. Kirby Smart's never beaten Saban.
But this seems like, I know I'm just it's prisoner of the moment maybe, but this seems like this is the best team he's had to go against him.
It very well could be.
And although they looked every bit as dominant as Normal Alabama this past weekend, this season they haven't quite looked like the Alabama of, just another Alabama season,
Well, talking about that game, that's a game that was a must-watch game for me. And after about 8 minutes, it was a must-turn-off game for me. I like Lane Kiffin's style, but going going for it 3 times on 4th down and not getting it, that pretty much by that time it was 20. I think it was 21-0 at that point, and that game was over.
I thought at the very least it was going to be like a 45-35 kind of,
That's what I thought. I thought it was going to be similar to last year, where it was going to be a really high-scoring game, and Alabama would win, but it would be in the 40s or maybe even the 50s.
And there would be a moment in the late third, early fourth quarter where you think maybe.
Yep.
And it was not.
But there was not even a maybe moment.
There was not. It was just a butt whooping. But I guess that brings us to our conversation off the air about just the preseason rankings and sort of the self-fulfilling prophecy of those,
We had to figure it out. I mean, they ranked teams too early, and it creates a mess. It raises false expectations. It penalizes some teams that are better than expected, or better than, I can't say better than expected, better than they're perceived that they're going to be.
Right.
And so it penalizes those teams, and then you don't have the opportunity to really have the playoff that you could have, because you've already made sure those teams can't get anywhere. So it was nice to see Cincinnati beat Notre Dame this early in the year and adjust and probably be in that top 4 or 5. And I don't see them falling out of it.
No, but part of the reason they're able to, because this is such a chaotic year, that's why they're able to get that high. Whereas, as a UCF alum, there were years where they were a really good team. They beat all the teams on their schedule. But because they were started at, number 22, 23, whatever in the country, they were never able to get up because the teams they needed. It's not just what you do is the best team at coming in the season ranked at 23. You need everybody ahead of you to falter. You need Oregon to lose. You need UCLA to lose. Florida to lose. You need all these teams all these things that are out of your control based on the beginning of, whatever was set out to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much prescribed those 20 teams, and then if you have a breakthrough year, by the time the end of the year rolls around, if you've been dominant, you might get to 12, and with 12 or even 9 isn't close enough to get in the playoff.
No, and then again, I look at the NFL rosters. I see all the SEC players in the league. Like I fully understand that the SEC is where overall the best college football is taking place. But it's also when you start with 9 SEC teams ranked in the top 20, it also helps the best teams stay at the top because they've got all these wins against ranked opponents. Whether or not those teams should have been there to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
Because by the time we have a 3-loss Arkansas or 4-loss Arkansas and they're all losses to, they're only good teams, it's still like, well, we beat Arkansas, they were top 10, But, yeah. And again, I know one of the polls does wait till like week 5 or week 6, but it doesn't really stop the conversation and doesn't stop the rest of the polls.
No, it doesn't.
And I mean, it's fine when it's done for novelty, like, when ESPN does their NFL power rankings, because they're irrelevant. It does come down to your schedule and who you beat and who you don't beat to get in the playoffs in the NFL. Whereas college, all these fun, we think this team, based on having a 5-star recruiting class 2 years ago, is a top 8 team. It's like, well, and you just don't know, especially because, college kids change quite a bit between, year to year. You can grow quite a bit. You can change, so even if somebody had, the 5-star recruit from 2018 might not be as good as the 3-star recruit from 2018 and 2020. That now that, the other team has 5 of those. It's a flawed system. But I don't see it changing.
It is flawed. I mean, we just need to do something to give other teams a shot.
Because again, I know they talk about the expanding playoffs being part of that, but it just seems like that's just going to be more SEC teams or another Big Ten team that are pretty much going to, And I know the other thing that the committee always wants to say is schedule people better, but if you become, a good team, like a UCF, I'll just keep throwing them out because they're easy, there's no incentive for a good SEC team to play them.
No, there's really not. There's really not.
Like, it's one thing in college basketball where you have 30 games and you're playing tournament in a 64 team field. Where if you're a Duke, you can play Gonzaga, and it's not that big a deal. But in college football, where one loss can take you, can knock you out of the college playoff, it's like, do I want to play, a Cincinnati or a team, a UCF or any of these teams that have been like a nice mid-major, now regular major, but, success story.
Yeah, I mean, Coastal Carolina might have been a nice place to take your kids for a weekend at Myrtle Beach. But now, are you going to risk it?
No. Why would you?
No.
So it's like, even though the committee gets to say, well, you should schedule harder, but it's like they can't because nobody wants to play them. And again, you can't blame the other teams because if you lose to them, there's no incentive. If you beat, Coastal Carolina, if you beat UCF, if you beat Cincinnati, you beat a team you were supposed to beat. And if you lose, it doesn't help them enough and it hurts you. So
yeah, I mean, that's exactly where it is. So we'll see. But I mean, this week we've lost 3, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
It's a big week. I mean, but it also tells you maybe you didn't rank them right.
Oh, without
so
a doubt.
not only are you ranking them early, are you ranking them right? Everybody jumped on the Oregon bandwagon real quickly there. And that's a bad loss.
It is. I must admit, even though I'm now in the Central Time Zone, and don't get to watch a lot of I do want a school from the Pac-12 to be good again.
I do too.
So I feel like, I was guilty also of being like, oh, look at this Oregon team. Plus they got the cool uniforms. You got the duck. You just get all excited, or UCLA or, USC.
I was getting excited to watch UCLA, Oregon, and now it'll be a nice game, but I don't care anymore now.
No. Because unless you go to one of those schools or you have a strong affiliation, there's no national title implications at this point. It's just another game between two college teams. And if it's a great game, awesome. We'll get the wings, get the pizza, enjoy it. But other than that, yeah.
I mean, we're shaping up to have some nice games. I mean, Alabama, Georgia, as you said, will be a good game. Wherever that takes place, I'm not sure that happens before the SEC playoffs.
I don't think that it does.
I don't think it does either. And then you got Michigan, Ohio State, which will be a good game. You got Ohio State, Penn State, which should be a good game. So, I mean, you got a few there.
Yeah.
But not much. Oklahoma, Texas is always a fun game to watch.
Exactly.
But Texas already has a loss and Oklahoma hasn't looked very good. So Texas wins. Then you got 2 one-loss teams in the Big 12. Although Texas could conceivably then go undefeated in the Big 12, but they'd still have a loss because they lost to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And now since Arkansas got tanked by Georgia,
yeah,
that Arkansas loss isn't as attractive as maybe it would have been if Arkansas would have beat Georgia.
Exactly. It's a crazy, crazy world. Speaking of crazy worlds, we have 2 undefeated teams in the NFL as of right now. One is playing tonight in the Las Vegas Raiders. And then the other, the Arizona Cardinals. 4-0.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that those are 2 divisions that we said were going to be crazy. That we thought the AFC West and the NFC West were going to be crazy divisions, right?
Yeah. We
said all along that there was so much, any team could win those. And week in, week out, I mean, you watch the Rams look like they would be hard-pressed to beat them. And then the Cardinals come and whip their ass.
Well, I would say this.
See that coming?
No. Like we said, there was a third down play where, despite the fact the Cardinals have 5 or 6 really good receivers, they were all blanketed by the Rams. The Rams had a huge pass rush. It seemed like the defensive end of a linebacker at the angle, but Kyler Murray ran back another 2 yards, turned the corner, and ran for the first down. And when he's healthy, he's such an explosive player that you played perfect defense and he still got the first down. And it's hard, I don't know how you can't really counter that guy. That's a video game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You could say, well, let's have a spy or let's account for him. You can't account for anybody that quick.
No.
With the ball that could run or throw rather than just be a runner.
And when you have DeAndre Hopkins,
it's hard.
Yeah, and AJ Green looks a little rejuvenated. But you already have Hopkins, Ronald Moore, Christian Kirk, Max Williams. You've got, all these weapons downfield. You're trying to stay covered. So you can't really afford to even have a spy.
And you can't cover him that long.
And you can't cover him that long. And even if you cover DeAndre Hopkins, as we saw last year with the famous, Hail Mary play against Green Bay, he'll just take it out of three guys' hands anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, maybe unless they have a letdown. I mean, I did not see the Rams as good as they looked the last game. This was totally blew me away because I was thinking, the Rams could go. The Rams could be undefeated. I mean, the Rams could go all the way to the Super Bowl. We were talking about that. How good they looked. And all of a sudden, here you go.
And one last thing on the Cardinals. James Conner, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming either. Otherwise, he'd be on our fantasy team.
Well, he's still, he's behind Edmonds and he's in a running back by committee. But, for those James Conner, he went to Pitt, recovered from cancer, played for the Steelers for a couple years, replaced Le'Veon, but had that great season. It's just nice to see him still succeeding, even if it's for another team.
Yes, it is.
He's one of those guys you can't help. He just seems like such a good, genuine person. It's hard not to root for that dude. So I like seeing him, do well on a good team. And we'll see if the Raiders can also
playing out tonight.
The Raiders look for real, but as I say it, it feels like I'm lying. So. Just because I've never really liked John Gruden. And, Derek Carr, they just don't seem for real. But, who knows, They've got playmakers on both sides of the ball. They've been drafting early for a while now. Derek Carr seems like he's, legitimately one of the best quarterbacks this season. So, more power to him.
Well, I'm hoping it's going to be a fun game to watch.
And I guess we can transition to franchises that I would feel good about right now. And if you drafted a quarterback, which were 5 of them last year in the first round, even though a few of them lost this week, they all looked pretty good. Like Mac Jones looked excellent against the Buccaneers last night.
Well, yeah, especially tying Brady's record for most consecutive completions. He looked I watched that game. He looked really, really good. He looked poised. He looked like he'd been playing the game for a long time.
And it was in the rain,
Yeah.
And, they were a doinked field goal away from winning that game.
Yeah.
And, Mac Jones looks, everybody says it, and it's not just because he's drafted the Patriots, but you watch him play, and he plays like young Tom Brady.
Yeah, he was the perfect quarterback for the perfect coach and the perfect system.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And although we were annoyed because they kept that game on the TV and we missed the first quarter of the Steeler game, Zach Wilson finally showed some of the reason he was a top 5 pick yesterday. He still was late on a couple throws, and he missed a couple throws that would have stopped that game coming from overtime. But he also had that 50-yard rope for the touchdown, and he was moving around, and it looks like, he showed signs of life, signs of competence.
Well, and the Titans would rank in one of my most disappointing teams.
Yeah, I think that's easy to say.
Absolutely one of my most disappointing teams. The Falcons are 1-3, but they're not disappointing me. I didn't think they were going to be any good to begin with.
No, the Falcons were getting a lot of that, if Matt Ryan's got one more year left in him, and Kyle Pitts is the next Travis Kelce / Gronk, which statistically he has not been. But he's young, he's 20, so we'll see, down the road. But then it was like maybe they could be frisky, but they don't look frisky.
What's the feeling about the Saints down in your neighborhood?
It's a lot of disappointment. Basically, anytime, as great as that play was, did you watch Tyson Hill?
Tyson Hill run?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was an awesome beast mode play. And he's still beloved down here, but when you have to take out your starting quarterback to bring Taysom Hill in, even for those little gimmick plays, it's not the best sign, They only did it to Drew Brees when Drew Brees couldn't throw the football very far anymore and he was old. And I think if you're the Saints, you're looking at a weird, I didn't pick them to do very well this year, as you know, despite, the crap I would take in the city. But they just don't, I think you either got to let Jameis be Jameis or figure something out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
Because Taysom Hill's 30-something years old. Like, he's not the quarterback of the future. And, what he does well is that play. He's going to run it, but he just bowls through your entire defense anyway. And the crowd gets hyped and they love it. But you lost to the Giants yesterday in overtime. That's, that can't be good. That's a bad, bad sign at home.
well, I've got a good sport business moment for us.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but the Premier League just signed a licensing deal with
Ted Lasso.
$680,000 American. And it allows the TV show to use archive footage, so you can show footage, historical footage, or footage of the teams playing. You can use logos, so you can put the logos of Richmond and then against Man City or whoever they're playing, the trophy, and you can do the whole thing. I mean, it's pretty wild if you think about it, because it's, you're taking something as prestigious and, with as much tradition as the Premier League, and you're going with a fictional team and letting them use all the marks and everything in the fictional TV series.
Yeah, but that's a TV show that, based on merit and timing. I mean, they're the perfect example of, if you get the right place at the right time, they become like, just a cultural phenomenon. And like I said, I feel like, that show is earnest without being corny. Again, I haven't seen the Christmas episode, but I think the Christmas episode, you can do that anyway. You can be corny as you want. It's Christmas. But between that and having, legitimately, not bad sports scenes, which is usually a death sentence anytime they do a sport movie in Hollywood. And, it's,
Well, it's interesting stuff. I mean, it's, I watched the next to last episode of season 2 last night, and I'm joking. I told a couple people I think it'll only take a 4-hour 2-parter to finish up the season with all the possibilities they left open last night.
Yeah.
So it'll be a good, they'll probably resolve 1 or 2 of them and leave some really big open-ended questions to lead into season 3, which is great, and I hope, as much as I love the show, I hope they stick with the 3-season arc, which is what they've always said it's going to be.
It's very rare that, there's always too much money and then, fine print in the contract, that ever gets to happen. Because, you look at, the American Office, and it had a great, 7-year run, and they just, they kept going.
Yeah.
And
the same thing with, what was the family? Modern Family. I mean, that went too far.
Yeah.
You're jumping sharks there. I mean, sometimes it's just that, leave them wanting more.
Typically, one of the things of a really good show is you have a close cast that likes working together. Usually that's usually, there's all the things that go into it. You have the crew, everybody just makes it, so it's hard to walk away from. And then when it's successful, the network's probably throwing enough money at you that you don't, it's almost like, well, it's something I love doing, and they're going to.
It is Apple's highest rated TV show.
Oh yeah, well it's having I've only had Apple TV for about a year, but like they didn't really make it. They always joke that you can hate watch the morning show, which I know people it's got a lot of famous people in it, but they said it's just so bad that it's good. And some of their other shows like C with Momoa, it's kind of just. I like the Shyamalan show, but that's not like an A+ show. But Ted Lasso is their actual only hit, I think, that they have. It's their Stranger Things. It's whatever, their Netflix, like it's the... Yeah. If you're a new network, to actually have one, global award-winning... And it's not just that. Like, Ted Lasso has won awards, and it's won the people and the awards, which is a pretty rare combination.
Very much so. And it's really global. It's got on global.
And again, you've tied in football, which is the most popular sport in the world, and you've done it I think, fairly well. Like I said, I think you and I probably, of all the sports, we know the least about it. But, you know.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, there's like maybe a minute and a half of football every week.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's in practice. It's not even a game footage. Like this one closed on a game. They don't. This episode last night, they were coming off the field. That they had won, but they were coming off the field, so there wasn't any action at all.
Okay. Well, back to American football. I did a little thing this day. I was Googling all the teams. And I have decided that there were at least 12 teams that would take a quarterback in the first round this year.
Okay.
With
12.
12.
Wow.
Now, again, it's not to say that they necessarily... I mean, I just think when you look at the standings, there's 12 teams that I could legitimately see wanting or needing a quarterback. Because when you look at the divisions, right? The AFC East needs the fewest, but I don't think the Dolphins are happy with Tua or Brissett at this point, right?
Yeah, probably not.
The Redskins, or the Washington football team, needs a quarterback.
Yes.
Dallas does not. I think the Giants and Philly, I think one of those teams probably does. Because I don't know if you're excited about Daniel Jones or Jalen Hurts as your quarterback moving forward. If you could upgrade, I think you would upgrade.
Okay.
You watched Baker Mayfield play football yesterday. Like, he almost cost them that. I mean, their defense played incredible, but he was missing guys by a mile. And I'm not sure how comfortable you are with Baker as your quarterback. The Steelers...
No, and they haven't re-signed him yet either.
Right.
Which means the jury's out.
Steelers need a quarterback. Lions need a quarterback. I think the Vikings, as much as they like Kirk Cousins, I don't think they would be unhappy to take a new quarterback. The Texans obviously need a quarterback. The Titans they're probably okay, but I don't think they're not necessarily out of the market of quarterback. The Falcons need an heir apparent. The Saints need a new quarterback. It's blasphemous to say this, I realize, but at some point Tampa Bay is going to need another quarterback. And then I think you look at, the Broncos. Because one thing about Teddy Two Gloves is he's never been able to stay healthy. So that's a lot of teams that, it just shows you how important.
Up like golf for the Lions.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, it took a first round pick, an additional first round pick for them. That was like to take him.
Yeah.
That's just so you get him away from our team, we'll give you a first round pick. Like that's it was because it was probably just one for.
So out of those 12 teams, one of those teams is going to end up with Aaron Rodgers.
One will end up with Aaron Rodgers, and then he who will not be spoken of, Deshaun Watson, is probably going to end up somewhere.
And then we don't even know if maybe the Packers then become one of those teams, right?
Right, because Jordan Love, I know he's only in his second year, and I drafted him in the first round, so I feel like maybe he's bought a year. But yeah, that's a lot of teams, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of teams.
Especially considering 5 quarterbacks went in the first round this year.
And I don't think there's the depth this next year for 12 teams.
No. I mean, again, I've got to watch more college football and start really diving deep on the quarterbacks, which I've done a little bit, but it'll be interesting. It's the most important position in all of professional sports, maybe. And there's just never that many guys that can do it.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to baseball for a couple minutes because now our baseball playoffs are set. So we have the Red Sox and the Yankees playing in the American League wild card tomorrow.
Wouldn't you want that?
You would, but there's part of me too that would have said, wouldn't the Mariners have been a good story?
They would have been.
Not. And you have the Cardinals, who are a really good story since they won 17 in a row to get there. And the Cardinals and the Dodgers. And, my philosophy at this point is anybody but the Dodgers.
It's true. But at the same time, the Dodgers won, 19 more games than the Cardinals over the course of the regular season?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, I know I hate to say they bought their team or whatever. They played within the rules. They got a lot of good players.
Yep.
So you kind of like to see the team with almost the second best record in all of professional baseball not have to play one game, maybe we win, maybe we don't.
Yeah. So then we're going to have the Giants then would play the winner of the Dodgers-Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And the Braves and the Brewers will be in the other series, which is kind of like a series,
Yeah.
Not a lot of appeal there.
None appeals.
In the American League, you got to root for the Rays. You have to. the lowest payroll by far of any of those teams. So, I mean, they do it well. They won 100 and some games. So the Rays will play the winner of the Yankees-Red Sox. And then you'll have the White Sox playing the Astros.
It does seem like if you add the two wild card teams in both areas, and whoever wins that playing those are the three teams you'd be most excited about.
Yeah, pretty much. Because they're all glamour teams.
Yeah, and then again, I mean, the Astros are just, we've already spoken our piece about the cheating or not cheating, but they're just kind of hard to root for either way.
Well, I'm kind of going to root for the Giants in the National League because they won 30 more games than anybody expected them to win. And I like a team that overachieves like that.
Yeah.
And they've got some fun young players that I like. So I'm going to root for the Giants, and I'm going to root for the Rays.
And the Giants have become very Cardinal-esque over the last couple of decades, too. Where they're just a very solid... Well. They're just they're always in the hunt. And, you got to respect that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Giants-Rays. I'm not predicting that those are the teams are going to win.
But that's who
I'm going to root for.
I think that's a guy I would be happy with those two teams as well.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're running a little long, but I've got a pseudo food moment for us.
Okay, and I've got a food moment.
When I was in college in Massachusetts, there was a place called DP Dough, which made really cheap calzones, which typically we would eat after, either I worked at the bartending or going out to drink and party in the bar. So they were, they were a nice, cheap, delicious late night snack. And we have one in New Orleans, bizarrely, that is actually the same DP Dough because I had to call and make sure.
That's bizarre that is there, though.
It is, right? But it is by Tulane campus, and it's definitely a college food. But we ordered them through Uber Eats because I was like, the nostalgia got to me. But I feel like without the bartending and drinking and just having it as a meal, it tastes exactly like DP Dough. There's no question. They have a formula. That's the formula. But eating it under these circumstances, I don't think I would eat it again. So if you happen to be a young person going to Tulane, then order them late night and you'll be very happy. But if you're an adult, maybe look for a better calzone.
Okay. And my food moment is from a place called the No Name Pub, which is in Big Pine Key in the Mid-Keys in Florida. A friend of mine, Andy Gillentine, his wife, had been there before, and Andy's kind of a foodie. So he suggested that we go and have a shrimp pizza. And that's what they're famous for. And when we got there, I went back to the restroom, and it was on the wall. There was this big story from USA Today. I think it was in 2009 or 2010. And USA Today had rated the best place to eat a pizza in each of the 50 states in the District of Columbia. And this no-name pub was the place in Florida. And it was really good. It was a really good pizza. The shrimp pizza was really good. I don't know if I would have liked one of the other pizzas,
right,
but the shrimp pizza was really good.
Well, Mom also told me that this place has $70,000 in ones taped to the walls.
Yes.
Which is just crazy. And they're not lacquered.
I've been in a lot of places that have done this before, but this one was insane. The number of dollar bills that were taped to the walls and ceiling and everywhere.
Like, that's just...
I mean, there's so many, they're like, in some places they're like layers. Because it's not that big of a place.
Yeah. And it is located in like a rich people area on an island, so I guess it's a little safer than most places, but...
Yeah, but it's really not. It's on an island, but it's not in a rich island.
Oh, okay.
It's like in a... like if Carrick was an island, where you grew up.
Oh, okay.
That would be the island.
Oh.
So it was really hard to find. And their marketing slogan on all their T-shirts and everything is, a great place if you can find us. And I mean, it's not like it's right off the road or anything else. I mean, it's a bunch of turns and everything, and it's in the middle of nowhere. But it was outstanding. It was really good. A lot of fun.
Okay. Well, I have two entertainment moments. It's October, so it's horror movie season. And we actually watched Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is John Carpenter. For people that don't know, the Halloween series was not supposed to be about Michael Myers. he just was so popular in the first movie, they put him in the second. And then subsequently, they were all supposed to be just a Halloween themed film. But so there was a lot of backlash when this one came out, and he was not a part of it. But it's basically about a company that makes masks with this little chip on the back.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, it's infused, it's John Carpenter, so you got the cool, the weird music. But essentially they stole a piece of Stonehenge. And they've used computer technology in Stonehenge to put this little chip in the back of the mask. And that if you watch, they get all the kids to wear the mask and watch them. And it basically turns their head to mush, and then snakes and stuff fly out of the masks. So it's kind of a cool premise. It just took a lot of crap at the time because it wasn't Mike Myers, and people were really disappointed. But it's worth a watch if you're like into John Carpenter or the old Halloween movies. And then my second recommendation so far, I'm only 3 episodes in, but I'm in on Squid Game, the Korean show that is the #1 show on Netflix right now. And it's probably easier if you just go Google a trailer for Squid Game.
Okay. And then if you haven't seen it, and I'm in on the last episode of Ted Lasso was outstanding, so I'm good.
Nice. And I think we mentioned it last week, but did we talk on the podcast about Many States in New York? Or did you just get to watch this past week?
About which one?
The Sopranos movie.
No, I've not seen it yet. Have you seen it?
No, I was hoping to watch it. I've heard, basically I've heard if you're a big fan of Sopranos, you're probably going to enjoy it. So,
yeah,
just
I've not
throwing
seen
it
it
out
yet. I'm
there
probably going to watch it this weekend.
Yeah. But, we'll have a lot of football talk next week. There should be a lot of good horror movies on for Halloween people. And then hopefully have a food moment.
Yeah. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the first round of baseball. And get ready for the NBA.